Hello and welcome. You're watching FI. I am Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Now, since the onset of the pandemic, you can easily divide the working class Indian into two categories. Those who work from home and those who suffer from work from home. Which one really are you? Well, either way, the news at the moment is that with the vaccine cover gradually and painfully expanding, however, eventually we will get back to work from home. Perhaps it will be a hybrid model. And then there will be again two sides to that. So let's try and dive into what the work from office essentials will be like. And while nobody can predict that really, the virus and its transmission really will be taking a call for both you and I. But we can look at some trends meanwhile. And let's start by telling you how exactly is the corporate sector thinking when it comes to work from office. So let's dive into our explainer. We looked at India Inc., which is now looking at vaccination as a key to gradually end and eventually return to a regular routine. And while companies are in no hurry to call their white-collar staff back to office, they have designated clear timelines for their employees to get vaccinated with at least one dose. Let's look at some companies now. Infosys, for example, told their employees that they could resume work from office, and the company said that many of its employees have been asking, in fact, to come back and start working from office as a personal presence is much needed for them. Infosys may see 20 to 30% of their workforce coming to office over the next 6 months if impact of the subsequent wave is minimal. Let's look at others. HUL, for example, over 1 lakh people at HUL have been given the first dose, including 18,000 employees, which accounts to almost 86% of their workforce. That will be a guiding factor for them. Panasonic and Dabur, meanwhile, have vaccinated nearly all their employees. Samsung have inoculated about 70% so far. Professional services firms like KPMG, they plan to reopen its offices in India in September, as it expects a majority of its employees to get vaccinated fully by then. Similarly, for PricewaterhouseCoopers is requesting employees to get both the shots, and they have a deadline there. They're saying by 3rd of August, ensure that you've got it. However, Deloitte India is more cautious and believes that vaccination is not the only factor to sort of bring back infection risks, and they are being more cautious in their approach. TCS, for example, claims that 70% of their workforce is vaccinated. At HCL Tech, 3% of the employees have already returned to offices and about 74% of them vaccinated. Wipro and TCS are expecting staff to be back by September. That seems to be the common thing there. And then global giants, meanwhile, like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, they have more than 90% of its employees working remotely, whether in India or in United States or any other part of that world. But most of these companies are now settling in for what we call and what we have discussed earlier on FII as well as what's the hybrid workplace, where 20% of the employees will work on site while the rest continue to work from home. Recently, Flipkart also said that employees will return to office thrice a week from December 2021 as it looks to vaccinate all its staffers and move to a hybrid working model. So that seems to be almost the compromise formula over there. But in key to all of this will be, what about employees? What are they saying? What is it that they want to do? Well, we've got a survey result for you that talks about employees seeking a risk assessment of regions, localities and areas, and that's something on their mind before they go back to work. Employees also want testing at their residence to be facilitated. They don't want to step out again. Employees also want to know and want to get the full satisfaction about the safety protocols. This includes people, especially who stay with family, who have elderly and kids at home. And employees also are demanding to know the vaccination status of their co-workers. How safe is the bubble that they will be working in? And apart from this, the basic health parameters at workplace, of course, being looked into. And that is especially that is on the top of their mind when it comes to coming back to work. Now, this is going to be different sector to sector. It will be different between the different hierarchies at work as well. That's something we can deep dive into with our panel. But let's also look at when will be return to normal. if not return to work, but return to normal. Will that happen in 2022? Now, we've talked about this in the past. We thought, okay, 2020, then we thought 2021, and now look at that. We're discussing 2022 already. And there, a recent survey talks about how 31% anticipate a return to normal in 2020. They are saying by the end of it, but who knows about that. 45% expect a normality to resume in 2022. 24% of leaders say their business has changed forever. So there might be a new normal now, not like what it used to be back in the day. And all this, of course, the KPMG 2021 CEO Outlook Pulse survey that looked at all these details. Fascinating, right? How our world is constantly evolving, changing, along with the virus, that is. So let's throw it open to our panel now to get a sense of what exactly will be the future of work over here. And joining us on the program today, we've got Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. He'll give us his perspective on what's happening next. We've talked about this for a while now on FII, and we are constantly updating. Every episode, we get some new insight and we wonder, whether this is going to happen or not. So good to get that perspective, the evolving perspective from him. Karan Vidvani joins us. He's the CEO of WeWork India, trying to understand what's the future of co-working space, important aspect over there. And Anshuman Magazine is also with us. He's the chairman and CEO for CBRE. And we also have Deepa Prem Kumar with us. She's a partner at the Flywork Consulting. All right, so this is a CEO's roundtable, so to say. You guys can go ahead and tell us what is it that you're thinking, what is it that would be a deciding factor moving forward. Let me come to Dr. Hiranandani first. Now, we are gradually looking at mostly these decisions to come with the vaccine cover. Most of the surveys say that employees now internally are demanding to know, okay, how much vaccination done, how safe it is. You think that is going to be the key factor, the fulcrum really over here to decide further course of action?
Sonal, you're absolutely right. The whole thing, backbone of the return to work is vaccination. I don't think there are two questions on that issue. The issue is slightly different because the fear of the third wave is huge. And even the governments are scared. For example, in Mumbai, we still haven't opened up the trains in spite of the fact that things are very close to normal in terms of the extent to which the disease is. So the fear in terms of the operations, whether it is the employees or employers, the staff, or it is the government, or it is my hospital. I mean, we are all preparing for the third wave, oxygen, PSA plants, you name it. We now also have a monoclonal cocktail which is ready for the purposes of injection. So we are all ready for the subject. On the other hand, the problem which we have is of the fact that people are now getting used to work at home. So, Sonal, it's not like that. There are some people who don't want to come to work. And they say, oh my God, we have now settled down at home. Why do we need to work? In certain cases, the companies are happy that they don't need to get the employees to work. So we do have a certain percentage. Now, whether that will be 5% or 25%, God knows, time will tell. But that is also going to happen. And we see that happening to some extent that is there. There are other companies who talked about, oh, it's wonderful to get people to work from home. And they tell me that the efficiency has fallen by as much as 50%. So we are going to, as soon as possible, get everybody to come back to work. So we have the extent of operation wherein we find that the new norm is going to remain for a certain number of people, whether it is employers, employees and others. And on the other hand, we are going to have people wanting to come back to work, or the employers wanting the people to come back to work in order to get the efficiency back.
So essentially, it's going to be about which sector you're in, what is the demand of that particular sector, as long as the employers and the employees are on the same page. Like I said, the world is divided into two people, those who love working from home and those who just simply cannot stand it. But let me go to Karan now. Karan, what are you seeing in terms of trends? We do know that a lot of companies actually let go of their office spaces. And they said, well, the future is going to be, why spend so much on real estate? Why spend so much on capital? And that's where people like you come in. You're offering co-working space. But again, the question is, how safe are they? Because that's not like a bubble that you go into work with a specific set of people. This would be about bumping into anybody new as well. So how safe are these workspaces? And what are you sort of witnessing in terms of trends here?
Thanks, Sonal, and just want to say hi to my panelists. It's been a while since I've seen all of you in person. What we've seen is obviously during the lockdowns and during the second wave or the first wave, even, there's obviously been a direct impact on people coming to the office. But what has changed is every company's mindset on what the office or what work is going to look like in the future. And I think that's been a very interesting, thing for us to see is companies that were very traditional, believed in the traditional office model, now looking at flexible options and different options for their employees. What's happened is that the employees themselves are expecting flexibility in their working style in the organization they go to work for. So from an employer standpoint, I need to provide some amount of flexibility to my employee as well, to be able to either come into the office or not. And the second thing that you touched on is safety in the workspace, right? I think a lot of people have realized, a lot of companies have realized, I much rather give it to an expert who knows how to manage an office, keep it clean, keep it safe, put social distancing measures if required, also do it in a format where I'm able to move around as the situation kind of needs. And I think that's where we sort of come in. And that's why some of the largest occupiers in the world now are, just moving to a complete flex type of model, or at least a big percentage. So you are seeing
business come back to co-working space?
Yeah, we see it in a cycle. So what you would have seen is when the wave hit, the smaller companies who were on more flexible terms, retract or at least pause their membership. They are now the first ones to come back heavily. But what we always had is, a good chunk, which is large enterprises. So they continue and have continued to stay with us over the pandemic. And even with them, what's happened is the hiring has continued at a dramatic pace. In fact, maybe even faster than it was pre-pandemic. So, with that, they already are acquiring space or running out of space even from what they currently have. And the way they're looking to expand that space is through flexible options now.
Right. Good to have that cleared out and, the trends that are emerging from there. Let me go to Anshuman Magazine now. Anshuman, I want to talk about these making your office spaces more smart. That seemed to be one of the key issues coming in. People, cutting down on human-to-human interaction, ensuring that you go, perhaps you still have your meetings, but in a more spaced-out environment. Tech playing a huge role in that. Isn't that key? But when we talk about tech, I mean, look at the times that we are having this conversation, and we are talking about this in the times of Pegasus. So how safe really is this entire space going to be, and what are you sort of predicting for the times to come?
See, first of all, no doubt every office now will have to or already has made changes as far as touchless entry to, instead of having, although nowadays a lot of offices don't have this attendance register, to a face recognition system which will, put the attendance there, to changing the filters in air, to distance between desks, etc. So there's a whole protocol which has come in place, which will be there, and they will be because there is so much information and people are so conscious, and for health and safety, which is the foremost issue for most of the employers. So the offices will go through quite a bit of change going forward. The fact is, whatever we may say, post-COVID, the whole office environment is going to change. The way we work, including in India, is going to change. But the fact is that eventually, like I think you mentioned right at the beginning, that it depends on what kind of business it is. That when you really work remotely, if you are in computer, you're doing some software development, you can actually do it from anywhere else, or are you in a services business? But overall, my feel is what's going to happen is that in India, especially because it's a young workforce, majority of the people will come back to work. It will be difficult. Everybody is used to not waking up in the morning, getting ready, going through public transport or going through 1 hour traffic, depending on which city you are. Imagine, in spite of mental health issues and all the complaining, the fact remains that it will take time, because it's 1.5 years since people have gotten up in the morning, wore their, gotten ready, got into the traffic, got to the office. So it will be a slow process. We still see reluctance of employees coming back. So although it's back to work, we have started that slowly, and people complain about all the issues. There is reluctance to come back, but eventually, so it will be a slow process, but I feel eventually most of the employees will come back, especially in a country like India, young workforce, and there's no way that you can learn, you can grow, you can bond.
Anshuman, I'm very glad you brought that aspect of young people, because let me just put out this tweet that I've got from an FYI viewer while we are talking on this issue. This is Rahul 296, I don't know his full name over here, but he says, work from office culture must be back with all COVID rules and norms. What I feel as a fresher in software development domain is that the missing of that environment, knowledge transfer, learning and growing together. Google Meet can be an alternative, but up to a limit only. So again, there is a sector by sector divide. There is a senior and junior divide. There are freshers who have a different approach, who like to have that water cooler conversation, because that's so important for them to actually learn how much can you really do virtually. And then there are the top executives of the company saying, well, it is absolutely fine if I can manage from home as well. So this balance, it's going to be a tricky affair, but let me see if Deepa has an answer for us on how exactly this can go moving forward. Deepa?
In fact, it's interesting you ask me that, Sonal. And the way I see it, I see this divide between the employees and the top management. And I see it for 3 reasons. If you take a step back and look at why we used offices, we used it predominantly for 3 reasons. We used it to get transactions done very quickly. We used it to build collaboration and cohesion so that better outcomes became possible. And we used it to deepen the company's values and culture. So what's happening from an employee perspective? Productivity has increased. They have proved that transactions can get done anywhere. And they're turning around and saying, I don't need to expose myself to risk. Work is getting done. But what's keeping the business leaders awake at night, and what they're struggling with is, how do I create collaboration and cohesion for better outcomes? How do I safeguard my company's culture and values? And that is why they're trying to bring employees back in smaller groups to offices. They're trying to explore with co-working spaces, saying, can we just keep the social connect going? Can we keep the collaboration moving? And can we protect and build on the company's culture? They're worried that the culture is going to disintegrate if everybody is remote. And that really explains the dilemma between the 2 groups that you see.
Well, maintaining a culture, that's going to be a deep one. We'll need another episode to sort of decode that one. But that's a good note to take a break on. When we come back, I also want to deep dive into where does this leave the entire analysis of where the virus is going. Will this depend upon, will we come to a point like what UK is doing? Infections are going up, but they are opening up. Is that how the corporate sector in India is going to think as well post-vaccination? That's coming up on the other side. Welcome back. We just have about 3 minutes on the program. So let me just go around on our panel now and just get some closing comments on which way do they think this is really going. We'll start with Dr. Hiranandani. And if you can just start by giving me your guess maybe on when do you think this is all going to come to an end?
I think 2022 is going to see a positive year. You'll have most of the people vaccinated. You'll have most of the people decided on how things are there. We have the a medicine which will take care of the patients who come in early enough to take it. Oxygens are now made available. And I think things will open out just like you mentioned in the UK. We will open out by January of 2022.
Okay.
Having said that, the companies, of course, as Karan, Anshuman, Deepa all have mentioned, will have different thoughts in mind at different times in place. So they would vacillate from wanting to have a few workers to having no workers to have all of them available to it. But I think new models will come out. For example, as Karan is doing, have the hub and spoke model where you have the corporate entities dissipated and people have are working closer from home
Right.
and connected into smaller offices in different places. So you're going to get newer models. And I
Right.
think that is going to be an exciting journey to see how commercial offices are going to
and
function.
in fact, we did an entire show on how younger people are actually now choosing jobs which give them more flexibility. That's become a priority for them as they move forward as well. Quickly, I'll just go around the table as well. Karan,
And
your
especially
thoughts?
women. And especially women.
Well, that's
who are
something we
bringing up
definitely
their
want to
family,
change.
Who are bringing families up. I think they want in the beginning part of their years and careers to be able to work
Yes.
from home and
But
still look
I
after the
really and
children.
truly wait, and I'm sure Deepa will agree with me, for a time when men can also come forward and equally participate and do that as well. Deepa, why don't you take that
I
one? Then I'll go to
volunteer for
Karan
my
next.
grandchildren. I volunteer for my grandchildren.
Deepa.
No, I don't think. I'd humbly like to say it won't take that long, hopefully, Doctor. on a serious note, Sonal, I don't think I'd want to draw a line in the sand saying this is when offices will resume. But what I'd like to draw a line in the sand is the office is never going to be used for what it was ever again.
Wow.
The office is not going to be a place where we go to do work. The office is going to become another tool to get work done.
Wow.
Like we have our emails, like we have our computers. We're going to use the office as a tool to get work done. There
Right.
are companies already which have announced that the office is going to be a place for celebration. They'll go there, the celebrations, milestones, reviews, go lives. Or teams will choose a day when they'll come together and work. So it becomes
Powerful
a tool.
words there. I have to
get
wrap. I'm
work
sorry,
done.
I'm intervening there. Karan, very quickly, then I'll go to Anshuman.
Again, I also can't draw a line, but I, definitely agree with everyone. By, sort of January of next year is when you'll start seeing a lot of things come back to normal. And the vaccination rates are, extremely high. So we're really bullish that by then people will start coming back. You're seeing it in the US. A lot of the decisions are driven by these MNC CEOs who see the confidence back in the US markets and the US offices. That will translate into India eventually,
Okay.
by the end of the year.
January
and
22.
flexibility is the future.
22 for Karan as well. Anshuman, last thoughts.
Yeah, I think it will be early next year when it will hopefully start getting back in. The fact is, these are early days to talk about trends. I think we're talking about too many trends. It's too early. We'll know the trends by next year. No doubt the office will not be the same. Flex space and co-working is already really picked up and will be, because it provides flexibility, will be important. But I think in India, again, we have different circumstances, not only young workforce, small houses, people living in joint families. You talked about women, they may want to be at home, but they may also want to get away from their mother-in-laws or their husbands. And in fact, and may want to get out, because that's the time you cannot learn if you're not meeting other people one-to-one or in groups. You can't learn by just sitting on Zoom. So I think a lot will change, but it's going to be a slow process. I don't think overnight, if you look at especially in India, even in the US currently, we have not seen huge changes, because change takes time, and you have to look at, like you said early, kind of business you do, your country circumstances.
True.
Eventually, majority of the people will come back to the office with flexible options, no doubt.
Well, our workplace has definitely changed forever, and that is certainly that we can all agree upon. Thank you all so much for your time. That's it on FII today. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.